John A. Back when I was in the fold in the 1970s, writing to Ron was encouraged. I wrote him a letter or two and received a nice enough response reasonably soon. Do you know if LRH ever wrote or signed off on any of these letters, or did he ever even see any of these letters? I'm guessing no, he did not, but what is your take? L. Ron Hubbard wrote a policy letter called Standing Order Number 1. And that policy, or the standing orders, there were a few of them. And the standing order number 1, I don't remember the verbatim, but it was basically all communications sent to me will be seen by me and responded to, right? And Hubbard sort of promised that as a point of policy. He then had a post created, a job created in every Church of Scientology. There's supposed to be one of these, although often there isn't. And this post or job is called the LRH communicator. And this person was supposed to be working in a church and overseeing that Ron's orders and directives and policies were being complied to. And often these LRH communicators or LRH comms run around doing this. And one of the functions they have is making a box, getting a box made that is called the SO1 line, or the SO1 box, and for standing order number 1. And they post a little plaque by a desk where they put writing paper and pens and whatnot. And you can write your letter to Ron and put it in the box. And it's a locked box, and the LRH communicator comes along and opens it and takes the letters out and is supposed to forward them on to Hubbard. Now, at the international level, this is back in the 70s when Hubbard set this up in the 60s and 70s, he had people on the ship whose job it was to answer those letters. And they had either a stamp, or they could write Hubbard's signature so it looked like his, right? And often he never saw anything having to do with these letters. Or I think there might have been periods of time, and I'm not 100% on this. I think there were periods of time where some of the letters might have been forwarded to him and seen by him, or perhaps if it was thought that the subject matter or the person writing was worthy of getting Ron's personal attention, then that letter would go to him. But more often than not, the letters were simply answered by the staff who were assigned to answer those letters and then sent on the way, right? And Hubbard also set this line up in the policy. He said that one of the reasons he set this up was not just for PR purposes, but it was also to be able to locate disaffected people with trouble areas in Scientology. Because, if people were writing to him from Keokuk and saying, "Oh my God, this executive director of Keokuk is just ruining the place, and the doors are closed, half the time, and I can't seem to get any help and get anybody in here to do Scientology and this sort of thing," then Hubbard and the Sea Organization would be alerted to that, and then they could take some kind of action or look into it more closely. So it was sort of a early warning system of trouble that Hubbard set up for that line, right, for that SO1 line. Now, I can tell you that I know somebody, and I won't say her name, but I know somebody who was on the ship back at that time period who told me that her own personal experiences were that these SO1 letters would sometimes collect in stacks and stacks because they just didn't have the time or really or sometimes the desire to even get to them, because it was just kind of tedious work answering all these stupid letters to Hubbard. So there were a couple times where they just wholesale took these stacks of letters to Ron and they just threw them overboard. And so they weren't always even answered. So I thought that was a funny and interesting story. I remember writing him a letter myself when I was about 7 years old or so, and getting an answer back, and I thought it was wonderful and all that. But anyway, that line used to exist, and now after Hubbard died, the SO1 line changed over to writing to the Executive Director International, who was Guillaume Lessev, and now there is no ED and Executive Director International. But that line, Scientologists still believe that there is a person on post doing that job, and those letters now go to that person. So that's how the line works now.